The national pastime has been so consistent through the years that its fundamental rules and iconography have become as foundational to our culture as the laws of physics are to science. The shared experience of a 9-inning baseball game is something that is now expected to be passed from generation to generation, and the consistency of the sport's rules, equipment, and aesthetics have made that all the easier. When you think of baseball, what comes to mind? The smell of hot dogs in the air, an ice-cold beer in your hand, and the murmur of a restless crowd? How about the crack of the bat? To a 30-something like myself, these are fundamental bits of my existence. Small things I crave every spring as the flowers begin to bud. But some thinking about this begs the question. What did baseball look like at its onset? What were the uniforms like? The gloves, the bats, the spikes? There was a time where these weren't iconic parts of American culture. A time where the sport was truly evolving and forming. In this series, we look to analyze the evolution of the equipment that makes up America's national pastime. And today's subject is that solid piece of wood used for hitting, associated with maybe the most iconic sound in all of team sports, and along with a baseball glove, often a kid's first true love. Welcome back to The Bad Baseball Fan. Let's explore the simple and curious history of the baseball bat. Before we jump in, I just wanted to thank you for being here and to remind you to give the video a like. It only takes a moment and goes a long way for the channel. Baseball bats are icons in American sports today, and like most baseball-related things, have remained relatively unchanged for the last century. The most shocking bat-related developments in living memory center around regulation changes and the introduction of the aluminum bat. But at the onset of baseball, the bat took on many shapes, sizes, and weights. From goofy creations recognizable as toys today, to cricket bats, to odd curvy designs, and everything in between. Baseball bats have had a confusing journey to become the iconography they are today. As a matter of fact, baseball may have once existed without them. According to Stephen Bratkovich of the SABR, there's a decent chance that the earliest forms of baseball played in Europe were played without a bat. Rather than striking a pitched ball with a tool, a player was rather to strike the ball with their hand. This version of baseball doesn't appear to have survived the journey over to America though, as any reference I found to early baseball stateside included the use of a bat. Early baseball players were expected to make and bring their own bats. And given the nature of the game at the time, these bats were often objects that would be viewed as completely absurd to hit a baseball with today. But early baseball, all the way through the early 20th century, utilized a softer ball that rarely traveled far off the bat. Given this, early ball players would often hit with flat-sided bats, chair legs, rolling pins, and other oddly acquired wooden materials. By 1857, when a convention of baseball teams met in Manhattan and formalized the rules of baseball, the bat had finally been, at least relatively, clearly defined. According to Bratkovich, one of the rules adopted stated that a bat must be round, must not exceed 2.5 inches in diameter in the thickest part, must be made of wood, and may be of any length. Even after this standardization, there would be more than another half-century of creative bat innovation within this rule set. Throughout the 19th century, baseball bats were, in the words of Jimmy Stamp of the Smithsonian Magazine, quite diverse. There were flat bats, round bats, short bats, and fat bats. As the baseball bat took its shape throughout the latter half of the 19th century, it's worth noting that these primitive striking devices were surprisingly heavy when compared to their modern counterparts. While ball players today swing bats in the ballpark of 30 to 35 ounces in weight, bats from back in the day tended to reside within the 40 to 50 ounce range. Given the nature of the sport in its early days, value in batting came from more control of the bat through the hitting zone. Heavier bats allowed for more accurate placement of hit balls for strategic hitting. As we will see in a bit, as baseballs got harder, bats generally became lighter, and swings much quicker. We should also note that there was no restriction on the length of the bat in place until 1870. Many early bat innovations came in creating ideal weight-to-length ratios and choosing the perfect species of wood for batting. The prime species of wood used for producing baseball bats is debatable to this day. While early baseball bats were made from anything from pine to cherry wood, the baseball world quickly recognized that ash was quickly available, was very durable for striking a ball, and easily malleable to suit the manufacturer's and hitter's needs. By the end of the 19th century, ash was the primary resource used for bat production, and it would remain that way for the next 100 years. As baseball experimented with its hitting sticks, some goofy shapes were produced and worth noting. Design changes to bats at this point were in an effort to streamline efficiency and comfort, though they tended to get a little out there. As mentioned in the Smithsonian Magazine, we can see some of these oddities in the Phoenix Bat Company's Mushroom Bat and Lashaway Bat. The former provided a heavier knob to act as a counterweight, and the latter, produced for Hall of Famer Nap Lashaway, provided a double knob, the typical knob on the bottom, and another a few inches above to support choking up on the bat or gripping it with a separated grip. The magazine also produces an example of a bat created in 1890 by Emil Kinst. Now, there have been some really bizarre baseball innovations, prior to and following this idea, but I believe this to be the goofiest equipment design in baseball history. Nicknamed the banana bat for rather obvious reasons, this innovation never really gained ground. According to the man himself, the purpose of the banana bat was to provide a ball bat which shall produce a rotary or spinning motion of the ball in its flights to a higher degree than is possible with any present known form of ball bat, and thus to make it more difficult to catch the ball, or, if caught, to hold it. A neat idea all in all, but frankly, I think the extra degree of difficulty may have come in making contact with the ball in the first place. Despite these odd ideas presenting themselves over time, the bat we recognize today slowly became the standard across baseball throughout the first 2 decades of the 20th century. And as the bat began to standardize, equipment manufacturing businesses started to come to the forefront. The most prominent of which, and likely the most recognizable by any casual fan today, is the Hillerich and Bradsby Company, known for the production of the Louisville Slugger. Established in Louisville, Kentucky in 1855, they first began to produce baseball bats in 1884. Their bats quickly gained popularity, and the business never looked back. Per the Louisville Slugger Museum and Factory, by 1905, the brand's reputation was strong enough that Honus Wagner endorsed their bats, becoming the first professional athlete to endorse an athletic equipment. Many of the greatest baseball players to ever do it would go on to swing Louisville Sluggers, including Jackie Robinson, Ted Williams, Hank Aaron, and Babe Ruth. As baseballs firmed in the 1910s and new regulations were introduced, including the banning of the spitball, a need for quicker swings developed. According to Bratkovich, the tapered handle, introduced by Rogers Hornsby, was the initial answer to this. After making the switch, Hornsby went on to lead the league in batting average, on-base percentage, and slugging percentage for 6 consecutive seasons. This development allowed for newer styles of hitting, such as Babe's on-his-heels uppercut swing that crushed the ball. Ruth actually became a bat evolution pioneer himself. Once the tapered handle took over baseball, the next shift was in bat weight. For all of baseball's existence, a heavier bat was in favor, but the developing need for increased bat speed led to the desire for lighter sticks. Ruth himself realized this, and toward the end of his career began to experiment with significantly lighter bats than he used when he was younger. Following his retirement, that mantle was carried by the Splendid Splinter. Ted Williams preferred a lighter bat than his contemporaries, swinging a 35-inch long and 33 to 34-ounce stick, and swinging himself into legendary renown. Successful examples, such as Williams, arguably the greatest hitter who ever played, prove the viability of a quick bat and over time it became the standard in Major League Baseball. This standard, with a tapered handle and lighter weight, remained the standard to this day. For the next 50 years, wooden bat development seemed rather stagnant. Then, finally, there was a rather monumental change in preferred wood following the steroid era. Early baseball players favored hickory bats before quickly moving to ash, and ash baseball bats were the preferred bat of MLB players for nearly a full century. That is, until Barry Bonds obliterated the home run records while wielding a bat made from maple. Quickly, maple exploded in popularity around professional baseball, but it has since proven to provide virtually no advantage over ash, and is significantly more likely to splinter when breaking. I guess I shouldn't say there weren't any major developments for decades before the shift to maple wood. That's a bit of a lie. Aluminum baseball bats were officially introduced in 1970, and have since become the standard for high school and college baseball, as well as softball. I'm not going to dive into their development or history. For that, I'll point you to Baseball Doesn't Exist. They actually have an excellent video that covers the topic. In the past few decades, knobs have been the focus of baseball bat development. The axe bat ditches the traditional mushroom-shaped knob in favor for one that resembles that of an axe handle. Invented in 1990 by Bruce Liner of Dover, New York, and finally mass-produced for use by Baden Sports in 2009, this newer style of handle has become rather popular amongst amateur and professional ball players alike. We've also seen oddities like Jeff McNeil's knobless bat. He prefers them like this because, according to McNeil himself, the weight is more evenly distributed and he favors that feel. And then, as the 2025 MLB season kicked off, the New York Yankees put the baseball world on notice, introducing the new torpedo bat with 15 home runs across their opening series. In what might be the first developmental evolution of the bat in nearly a century, these new bats, according to MLB itself, shift the barrel to a non-traditional location closer to the hitter's hands, with a skinnier top at the end. This is obviously a new development, so the torpedo bat's impact is yet to be realized. Orders are being placed and delivered all over the league, so it won't be long before we have collected enough data to truly understand the impact of this innovation. But I'll tell you what, I've had this video idea logged for a while, and the timing of all of this was just insane. I watched Game 2 of that Yankees-Brewers series, where the Yanks were just launching bomb after bomb, and when I heard about the new bats the next day, I just had to shake my head and laugh. For a sport that has been a model of consistency and has existed far longer than living memory, baseball still somehow has ways to surprise us up its sleeve. I would have initially ended this video discussing how the design of the bat was virtually perfected decades ago. But before I even got to write those words, I was forced to eat them. It turns out there are still improvements to be made to the equipment used in baseball. It might just take some outside-of-the-box thinking to get there. Thanks for joining me on this fun exploration on the evolution of baseball bats. They become synonymous with not just baseball, but American culture itself, and I, for one, had no idea that they've had such a winding road of development. Make sure you leave a comment about your favorite bat that you've ever used. And once again, I want to thank you all for being here and supporting my channel. Please consider being a member and joining our community, and check out the merch we have. I'll see you all for the next video, and remember, if you like baseball, like this video and subscribe for more.